Hi, hi everyone. Welcome to the series of lectures on basics of civil engineering. Today we will discuss on load-bearing structures and frame structures. So, what is a load-bearing structure and what is a frame structure? How can you differentiate them? Basically, in the basics of civil engineering, you will be learning many basic terms and you will be knowing many things about the disciplines of civil engineering and knowing many things on civil engineering. So now, while we go into the topic, load-bearing structures and frame structures, first we have to know what is a load-bearing structure. A load-bearing structure means the walls of the building carries the loads. Okay, the walls of the building carry the loads. Then in these, the loads are that means the loads they are transmitted by the walls to the foundation. As you all know, what is foundation, what is superstructure, what is substructure and plinth. You had already dealt with this, so you may be knowing what is that. So these loads which is coming on the top or which is floors are transmitted by the walls to the foundations. You know what is load bearing capacity of the soil and what is the properties and what is the uses of foundations and many things. So then the materials which is used for the construction of these load bearing structures are mainly bricks, blocks and concrete. So when you consider the path, how is this load is transferring, when you consider that it is the load is transferred to the foundation from the slab to the walls and walls to the foundations. So when wall is transferring the loads to the foundation, you have to take into consideration many other factors. One factor is that in the structural system, it is external and internal walls. It serve as the structural elements. Rather than a protection. Usually, we consider the walls as a protective enclosure or a protection which gives protection from the weather conditions. But in this case, the wall it acts as the load carriers. Okay. So they act as a structural element as well as for the purpose of protection from the weather. Okay, fine. Then the foundation of the load-bearing structure, they are usually made up of rubble masonry or with the stone. So this is a brief idea about the load-bearing structures. Now, when we talk about the frame structures, so there is a difference between a load-bearing structure and a frame structure. So to know that, we should know what is a frame structure also. About a frame structure, this frame structure means it is what is the frame of a structure? It is a skeleton, right? You can say. So it is a network of beams and columns of a building. So the structure will be having some beams and columns which is connected. Mainly you can visualize this when you think of a flat or any structures which is built in your area. You can usually visualize what is a load bearing structure and a frame structure. So a frame structure is a network of beams and columns joined up to form a skeleton framework of the building. So it is a skeleton framework of the building. These beams and columns, they form the skeleton framework of the building. And the structural frame, that is this beam and column, it carries the load of the building and transfers this load to the foundation. That is, the beam and column are used to carry the structural loads down to the foundation. So here we can say walls are constructed in this structure. The walls are constructed just for privacy and also safety. Then this framework, it is usually of steel and concrete and is very small. In very small structures we use timber and aluminum. So now you can understand what is a frame structure and what is a load bearing structures. So now you have to differentiate how can you differentiate a load bearing structure and a frame structure. So to differentiate this load bearing structure and a frame structure, the very first point you can say is that a load bearing structure, the load is transferred from the slab to the wall to the foundation. And in case of a frame structure, the load is transferred from the slab to the beams, then to the columns, and at last column to the foundation. Then that is one first point. Then considering about the walls. So in case of a load bearing structures, the walls are thicker and you will be having a less carpet area. So the room dimensions here, you cannot change your room dimension. That is, what room dimension you have in your first floor, the same will be transferred from the slab to the beams, then to the columns, and at last column to the foundation. Then that is one first point. Then considering about the walls. So in case of a load bearing structures, the walls are thicker and you will be having a less carpet area. So the room dimensions here, you cannot change your room dimension. That is, what room dimension you have in your first floor, the same will be carried in the second floor because the load has to be transferred. Okay. Then in case of a load bearing structures, we had already told that walls, you cannot give different sizes for the rooms. That was we discussed just now, what we told. So in about the frame structures, in frame structures your walls can be thinner, and you have a carpet area also compared to this wall bearing structures. So room dimensions you can alter here because it is known. Can be altered because it is not carrying any loads. It is just for the protection, so you can make any of your size walls. Okay, then another point is large span is possible only in frame structures. This is not possible in load bearing structures. Large frames are possible only in frame structures, and this is not possible in load bearing structures. Then there are also limitations in providing openings in load bearing structures. So hope you get the points. The points are, one is in load bearing structures the wall will be carrying the load and transferred into the foundation. In case of frame structures, this skeleton, beam and column will be carrying the load and transferring to the foundation. That is one point. Second point is that your wall thickness will be more in load bearing structures, and you have to keep same walls one after the other. There is no free, you can't do any other change in the dimensioning of the wall. In case of a load frame structures, walls do not act as load carriers, so it is for you can use it with different sizes. Then for a large span load bearing structures it is not possible, but in frame structures you can have large span. Then there is one more limitation, is that you have to reduce the wall openings in the load bearing structure.